check out the Narc video. There's drama with Josh Strife and Ashes. Okay, Josh Strife Hayes is completely wrong about Ashes of Creation, but it's not his fault.
No, not Josh. Not Josh as well. How is this? Where's my phone? I need to sort this out.
Tell me where you keep it. Where is your funding stored?
Look, it's Amarath.
A legendary level 3 Pantheon deer, and this corporate entity is now under my siege. Tell me where it is.
Huh? Money? I've never heard of it. We're paid here at Blizzard headquarters exclusively in breast milk.
Bah, you
No, they're actually being paid in honor points, and that's not a joke.
useless. The once mighty Blizzard reduced to ash before my excuse me for a moment.
It's Bobby on the line.
What the hell, man? Even Josh Strife is getting my game confused with yours now.
Oh, this again? Well, that's not my problem, Baldy. For everyone who thinks our shitty game is the same as yours, that's funding you're not getting.
It's not funny. I see this constantly, and it's really starting to get to me now.
Silence, whelp! I have breast milk to harvest.
Oh my god.
Hey, what up, boys? So, today is the day I finally tell everyone why I'm overly critical about Pantheon, Rise of the Fallen. Not only is the game a complete joke in terms of concept and execution, making it easy meme material for me, but the frustration goes deeper than this. Every day I wake up full of life and hope. My optimism for the future of MMORPGs is renewed every morning when I'm reminded of Ashes of Creation's progress over the last 10 months.
It's been a lot of progress.
The combat direction, the innovation when it comes to character creator and weather effects. The MMORPG player base should be rejoicing. We're finally getting a game that seems to be doing everything right. Apart from the cosmetics, the FOMO, the battle royale, and the stalling, of course. But you see, my friends, this is not the
I don't think the battle royale was problematic at all.
case for the general public. Oh, no. And allow me to explain why in today's video.
Okay.
But before we get into that, our patrons and I would love for you to
That's a lot of
grab
fucking people.
yourself
God damn.
Coca-Cola, because my optimism is crushed every single day when I look through my usual social media to find relevant news to report on, and people everywhere, Twitter, YouTube, Reddit, and Discord, continue to confuse Pantheon, Rise of the Fallen, with Ashes of Creation. Even the gorgeous hunk that is Josh.
I feel like nobody is gonna actually confuse Pantheon Rise of the Fallen with Ashes of Creation. That's like confusing the original animated Lord of the Rings with the Peter Jackson trilogy. You're just not gonna do it. They're obviously two completely different things, and anybody that has any eyesight at all would immediately be able to tell the difference.
Hayes has fallen to such a trap, and if I'm honest, I just can't take it anymore. I need to vent. I need to clear the air and sort this mess out because...
Alright, let's see it.
I'm at my limit with this bullshit.
So today, it's time for you to turn around, drop your pants, and bend over because I'm about to hate fuck your brains out whilst releasing my frustration about this constant mix-up. Now, with all that bollocks out of the way, let's begin, shall we?
Alright, let's see it.
So it is actually pretty reasonable and an easy mistake to mix these two Kickstarter projects up. However,
I don't know
even
how.
at the Kickstarter stage, the major differences between Pantheon and Ashes of Creation are already misrepresented. Pantheon Rise of the Fallen actually failed to kickstart, barely even getting half the required funds to set it off. But this didn't stop them, no. Despite the lack of interest, they chose to privately fund the game instead, using $10,000 pledge packages that still exist today, paid access to their forums, and an NDA so thick it would put even your head to shame. And to top it all off, there's a caveat in their pledge page saying if this game falls through, you will not be getting your money back.
Now, of course not.
If we mirror this with Ashes of Creation, they actually smashed their Kickstarter goal 10 times over within the first day, setting records for the most funded MMORPG to date. Their caveat to funding actually says the opposite. If this project fails, you will get your money back. But the Kickstarter was merely a gauge in interest, allowing Steven and the team to confidently go all out and promise the full roster of original plans. The Kickstarter
makes sense
wasn't
to try to raise
a funding
money.
process, because Steven has said on multiple occasions,
the bottom line is I am committed to this project's success and completion, and that means that when it comes to
this one.
Funding for the additional years that perhaps were not planned for, that's coming out of mine and John's pocket, and we're okay with that, because what we see in front of us is not only a team of extremely talented individuals, but also a community that is extremely passionate about the project and wanting to see it come to fruition.
the game is
that's always been one of the massive selling points of the game, is that it's being funded by an individual primarily. There's no 10 cent is not invested in Ashes of Creation, as far as I know, at all.
already funded to completion out of his own pocket, regardless of any sales made through the monthly packs. You see, the packs still exist with their current access, and the price still stands as it did back in 2018, because by reducing the price, you're spitting in the face of those original backers. And I respect Intrepid for doing that. Even though it is hurting their reputation in the current year, it is the correct choice to make. If you think the alpha keys should be lower in price to suit the current interest, then you, my friend, clearly are so used to Blizzard taking a giant shit on your head, you think it's acceptable to be treated like a toilet. Well,
it's a weird thing, because I actually don't I actually agree with this. I think that having the alpha set at $500 is a good thing, because any reasonable person would not look at it as a purchase for the alpha. Like, there are very few people that are going to spend $500 to get just into the alpha. Whereas if the alpha was priced at $35, a lot of people would buy the game, they would buy the alpha, and it wouldn't be ready, and they would be like, what the fuck? This game's not ready at all. Bro, like, a lot of these quests aren't finished, like, the zone's not done, I can't level, like, what the fuck? There's bugs everywhere.
not me. I dropped out of the Blizzard shill train many years ago because I value being treated with respect. Steven is down 30 million as of the release of Alpha 1 and has most certainly...
The way he said that just made me think of Train. Like, just... That's the way he said, I'm down millions. Yeah.
not made his money back yet. So if this is a scam, then, well, you're doing a pretty shit job stealing our money, Steven. Maybe you should take a leaf out of Pantheon's book and stop actually making progress. The only similarities between Ashes of Creation and Pantheon Rise of the Fallen is that they both still remain in an alpha development stage today. Ashes of Creation just passed its 5-year mark, and Pantheon Rise of the Fallen is creeping up on its 9th year mark. A pretty big difference considering Pantheon hasn't had a single publicly viewable alpha phase yet, nor is one in sight anytime soon.
Yeah, if Pantheon has an alpha phase, I'll play it. Like, I think Pantheon's gonna be garbage. But I didn't really know what I was gonna think about Final Fantasy, and I had fun with that. So, I'll play the game, sure. Why not?
Ashes of Creation shows considerable progress every single month, even before the Unreal 5 announcement, and had an extremely successful, publicly viewable Alpha 1 test, boasting incredible MMORPG feats that we thought were quite literally impossible in this modern age of MMORPGs.
I will say that, like, Narc is right about this. Because remember whenever we did the Dragon Raid in Ashes of Creation and there was no lag? Even though there was easily 60 people there? And this was on the alpha? That's insane.
But my major concern here is how easily and how common it is for people to mix up Ashes of Creation and Pantheon.
I don't think anybody is doing that.
These are not the same game, but to the public eye, as demonstrated by Josh, they are. All of the dodgy practices, the scam-level progress, and the egregious monetization attempts over the years, such as reducing the price of the keys and them trying to sell NFTs, has bled into Ashes of Creation's reputation. I see this every single day across all social media platforms, and it infuriates me.
I actually think that it does, like, having one Kickstarter that turns out to be a disappointment or a scam does negatively affect all of the other Kickstarters. Because as soon as you see one game that's, like, scuffed or fucked up or whatever, it makes people think, well, what about this other one? What about that other one, you know? I think that happens a lot. Chronicles of Elria? Yeah, I saw Kira made a video about that. I'm not going to watch it today, but I will watch it at some point.
You think I shit on Pantheon and Visionary Realms because of their lack of talent and motivation to actually make a game?
That would be one good
I do
reason.
it because Ashes of Creation's reputation suffers because of their lack of talent and progress.
Exactly. It's the same as, like, remember whenever PewDiePie had the bridge? And then, like, all of YouTube had this, like, ad problem? And then also, like, whenever anything really bad happens, probably on Twitch, it's probably harder to sell ads on Twitch as well.
But I digress. My goal here today, as much as I want it to, isn't to slander another so-called passion project. It is to clear up the misconceptions that one of our leading content creators within the MMORPG space seems to have with this highly anticipated MMO. So
what did he say?
Let's pull out the copium and convince ourselves that Ashes of Creation isn't going to follow in Pantheon's footsteps.
Yeah, what did Josh say?
Josh has shown his disdain in the past for Ashes of Creation, and I completely stand by his original critiques. Viewing this project from an outside perspective is exactly how I go about creating videos and likely contributes to the amount of success my format has had. Albeit that comes at the cost of me being labelled as a dumb fuck within the neckbeards of this community.
A knock, sadly, takes great joy in mocking them over it. What a toxic asshole.
I deliberately choose to word things in ways that normies would understand the concept.
Yeah, of course, you can't use, like, this is just a smart way of communicating. If you have a large audience, using a bunch of acronyms and, like, compounding knowledge is just obviously a bad idea.
In the ways that stroke the obsessive copium fiends festering in the pits of Reddit and Discord. Reality check, guys, the game doesn't even exist, so stop consuming social media about it daily. And that includes all of you morons in my Discord as well. From an outside perspective, the game's progress and concepts do seem extremely daunting. Open world PvP, player-driven world, ocean dungeons, world bosses, artisan seals, but the truth is, it's only really the node system, focusing on that player-driven aspect, that makes this MMO different. Even then, I think we, as consumers, are way overshooting the impact this player-driven aspect will actually be. We are, unironically, overhyping this particular part of the game because of the lack of information about it. And admittedly...
No, that's definitely true. Every MMO follows the inverse information paradox. The less you know about the MMO, the more excited you are about it. But the more you know about the MMO, the less excited you are about it. What's the game everybody's hyped up about right now? The Riot MMO. Bro, it's going to be so good. What do we know about it? Nothing. But it's going to be so good. Like, there it is. Yeah, it's just that simple.
It will probably end up disappointing a lot of us. But aside from this node system, the open world PvP concept has been used across multiple games. The planned crafting and gathering systems were highly successful in Star Wars Galaxies and EVE. The oceans and caravan systems, leaning on a risk versus reward motivation, are utilized successfully across a few. And in fact, Ashes of Creation is quite literally just a nice blend of Lineage 2, aka Black Desert Online, and Arcage. They are quite literally just copying the best systems out of these four aforementioned.
Thank God. Thank God. Yeah, we don't need a new fucking wheel. We had a wheel, It was rolling. Let's keep rolling. Let's go. Let's go. Yep. Keep rolling the wheel. Let's go. Yep. It worked before. Yep. All right. Great. Let's have it work again. All right.
Games and blending them all into one. It is not impossible or daunting at all, and the progress they've made this year has been a pretty clear indicator the game is quickly becoming a reality. On that note, let's discuss the clip in question. There's 3 major points to Josh's clip that I want to address. The scope creep, the so-called taming discussion, and the common sense logic of how an MMORPG should be made. Each of these points he made does not apply to Ashes of Creation in any capacity whatsoever. This is what compelled me to make the connection to Pantheon Rise of the Fallen. First of all, he mentions scope creep and feature creep. At no point during the development process of this highly anticipated MMO have they ever increased the scope or features planned.
Well, I think that scope creep is something that will naturally happen on its own. Because, like, how many of you guys have ever gotten involved with something and then, like, you realize, like, for example, I'm trying to get music downloaded to, like, my dad's iPod, okay? So that sounds pretty simple, right? So we can't use iTunes and his iTunes account because his iTunes account, he doesn't know the password for it. So then we go to look at, they still make iPods? No, bro, I actually have the one I didn't steal it from Eric. Eric actually gave it to me. And, like, Eric's iPod broke, then I gave him my old one, that black one we bought at Best Buy. I think you were there, Cody, whenever I bought that. It was like, I bought that with, like, student aid money from fucking, like, 12 years ago. I still have that same fucking iPod, yeah. And so anyway, so I try to buy, the songs for my dad on iTunes Music, and I can't do that because we can't get into his account. So then we try to recover his password, but we can't recover his password because the password information that he knows, he forgot what it was. So then we go and we try to look that up. And then we're like, okay, well, can we send an email to my dad's email and then get the recovery? Well, no, we can't because my dad's email got broken and he can't get back into his own email. So now we have to make an entirely new email and then call Apple and then have all this happen and then prove to Apple that it's my dad. And so, like, this is how scope creep happens in real life. That's my point. Do you see kind of how I'm saying this? How, like, you know, one thing leads to another thing that leads to another thing. So scope creep is a natural outcome of doing anything.
They decided during Kickstarter was set in stone the moment that ended, and not once have they attempted to expand this. There was a debate last month about the map size increase being classed as scope or feature creep, but I think after analyzing and much consumption of copium, we came to the consensus that it is not scope or feature creep to convert the original concept of the game into a practical, usable world that supports the systems. In fact, they even reduced the original scope by removing 15 of their original 103 planned nodes. So
I think that was actually a really good, that to me is the exact idea of not having scope creep. Because what they originally had planned for a bunch of nodes, they said, this is too much, there's too much going on, we're gonna scale it back. And I would assume that making more mountains and more just environment is a lot easier than building an entire node system. That's just my assumption. I'm not a game developer, but that's certainly what would make sense to me.
Technically, it's unscope creep. Anyway, the reason Josh mentioned scope and feature creep in the first place was to push the point of the recent taming discussion? What? Well, this is where it dawned on me. You see, to swindle the super copium enjoyers within the Pantheon player base, they like to do what is called parting of the veil, or what I like to call parting of the arse cheeks as they fuck their backers with no remorse, because this is just 1 hour of them answering questions and promising more and more things that are never actually going to exist. Surely not Chronicles of Valeria vibes, am I right, guys? Pantheon has shown way more progress than that game after 8 years, for sure. This baseless promise of cool conceptual features is the definition.
And we watched this, by the way. Remember we watched that video on Pantheon where they talked about taming and breeding the mounts and everything like that?
of scope creep, and the subject matter of this month was, of course, taming. The very thing
Yes.
Josh brought up. Pantheon had no footage to back up these wild claims, of course, just the same reused Unity assets that they think is acceptable to present the progress of their game here in 2022. Steven hasn't
Good
spoken
graphics.
about taming or anything like
That's
that
good.
since ever, because Intrepid do not talk about things until they are ready to show. So
I thought he did talk about taming like a year ago. That was a long time. And it was something about like breeding mounts or something like that. It was a long, long time ago. Yeah, animal husbandry. Yeah. Yeah, he did. Yeah, that was recent though, right? That was like in the last 3 months.
the only explanation for this comment is that Josh quite literally thinks Pantheon and all its failings are also ashes of creations. Finally, Josh also spoke about how a game should be designed. Develop the basic functionalities, release a playable product, and then add stuff on top of it. You know, common sense? The funny thing is, the exact quote that Josh said, I think I've heard it word for word coming out of Steven's mouth as well. Steven knows what it takes to make an MMORPG, and
I actually think that it's super important, and I bet Josh and Narc would both agree with me on this, is that it's super important to not bring the game out and have it be bad in any way. Because New World did that, and whenever we look back at it and we think, would New World have been better if the game was delayed and released on the Gypsum patch on day one? In my opinion, unequivocally yes. Without even a question. It would have 100% been better. So I think New World goes to show that releasing a half-baked game will hurt the game in the long run, even if the problems are fixed later on. I think another example of that is Battle for Azeroth. Think about how many systems were shipped dysfunctionally, and then it tainted the entire reputation of the expansion, even beyond after they fixed the systems.
he's been doing everything correctly. That's why Ashes of Creation has so much faith behind it. It is not just baseless cope. This is the only upcoming MMORPG that genuinely looks like it will succeed for once. On that note, Steven
I disagree with that. I think that Final Fantasy is very successful. I think that Lost Ark is also very successful, and I think it will continue to be successful, although it's pay to win, so I think people would write that one off. I think WoW will also continue to be very successful. Classic WoW is doing great. You know, retail WoW and Dragonflight is doing relatively well, I guess. And also, we have the Riot MMO. Oh, he said upcoming? Oh, yeah, sorry. Maybe I didn't hear that. But yeah, I think the Riot MMO absolutely has just as much potential as Ashes of Creation, if not more.
Actually reached out to Josh in this clip and offered an interview in the comments. Josh, if you're watching this, or any of his viewers able to clip...
Oh no. Steven plays Necrons? Bro, Jason used to play Necrons. Nothing says balance like being able to use a infantry auto attack to destroy a tank. Yeah. Having a 2,000 point army with, 10 different NPCs. Yeah, totally fucking balanced.
Please take up this offer and interview Steven, because I think you are misunderstanding a lot of what Ashes of Creation is all about. You preach you want the genre to be better, and Steven is trying to bring that back to us, back to a time before MMOs were complete corporate dogshit. You will not only be doing a huge service to the MMORPG player base, but I think it would also make you consider sucking in that sweet, sweet Ashes of Creation copium.
I think the fact is, like, Josh probably plays a lot of different games, and I think that's probably why he might not need the copium as much as somebody like even I would before I started playing a lot of other games, is that whenever you're only playing like 1 or 2 games, it becomes like the focus and like the importance of those games is like hyper magnified. Whereas, like, whenever you're playing a bunch of different games, who cares? Like, if Ashes of Creation isn't good on release, that's whatever. Like, I remember whenever McConnell, McConnell was going to play New World on release, and he didn't really play it that much. He's like, it'll be good in a year. And we've hit about a year, and it's getting pretty good. McConnell was unironically right about New World, that it would take about a year to make the game good, and here we are. Greatsword's coming out in 6 days. So I think, yeah. I mean, just play other games, and it will give you a, in my opinion, healthier outlook on gaming in general.
Month in particular, Ashes of Creation has been receiving a lot of hate, far more than the usual 3 threads a day, but that's
I disagree with that. I think that this month's Ashes of Creation alpha and the footage that it showed, like, I'll go ahead and just show you guys real quick, right? And I don't want to go too far into this. But look at this. So I released a video.
Well, after years
and by
of speculation,
I mean my editors released a video. So this has 321,000 views. This is almost 500,000 views. And where's the most recent one? Let me see if I can pull it up here. And this is on my official channel. Let's see, where is it? This Ashes of Creation update is mind-blowing. So this is a video we made about it whenever I came on and talked about it. This has almost 700,000 views. And everybody is fucking positive about this video. Like, everybody loved this video. People were so positive about it. So I don't think that there's been a lot of negativity about Ashes of Creation at all. I think there's always going to be skepticism, and there are also going to be people that everybody's being positive, so I'm going to be negative because I'm different and I'm special and I don't listen to music on the radio because I'm cooler than that. You're always going to have those people, but I think that if you look at it a little bit more objectively, Ashes of Creation objectively right now has a lot of hype behind it, and it's authentic hype. It's not based off what was said, it's based off what is seen.
expected, considering they just took a giant dump on all the Zoomers' desperate need to sate their action combat ADHD. But it's important to remember, Ashes of Creation isn't trying to be the next World of Warcraft. It isn't trying to be the next big thing. Steven has said this multiple times, and even the player base, who desperately consume it every single day, already know the open world PvP nature of this MMO will not allow it to maintain an audience the size of World of Warcraft. This highly anticipated MMO's ambitions are simple. Just be a good MMO that respects its players without pay-to-win and anti-social convenience systems. Believe it or not, kids, that's...
I have to say that respecting players and anti-social systems, these are antithetical to world PvP. If you allow people to world PvP freely, they will not respect other players' time. They will intentionally waste their time. And it will make new players not like the game. I think it's important that they make the game the way that they want, but it has been obvious that they have changed based off of what feedback is. And I don't think that Ashes of Creation should do anything that they don't think that they should do until the actual players play the game. Because there's always like theoreticals, but you need to actually have people there playing it, experiencing it, before you can really decide what's real and what needs to change and what doesn't need to change. It's kind of like if Blizzard could re-release Classic WoW again, I bet they'd probably do PvP in Phase 2 differently.
What MMOs used to be, an escapism for people like me who struggle to fit in the real world. The heavy emphasis on social media nowadays and the kids growing up on nerdy stuff being the norm does mean the escapism that used to exist is no longer a thing. Sadly, it's all just money bags to our corporate overlords now.
Well, I think also us as streamers hurt the escapism too, because now because we are making content in the game, and our existence in the game predicates and presupposes a existence outside of the game. Like, that's just the truth. Anything that adds a window into the outside world hurts that immersion.
Oh, darkness, my old friend.
Intrepid have made a bunch of mistakes during their development process. APOC was an embarrassing move in my opinion, the cosmetics are a heavily debated topic, and the few periods of time where the progress was slow probably took a toll on this game's reputation.
Yeah, sure.
However, the last 10 months have been absolutely phenomenal for the game. The move over to UE5 feels like something Intrepid have been waiting for to really pop off, and they've been pulling no punches to prove to us they are capitalizing on the incredible strides in technology Unreal Engine 5 offers.
Yeah.
So to end today's clickbait
Graphics
drama
are great.
video, I actually don't have a question for you guys, so instead I will leave you with a closing statement. I hate Pantheon, Rise of the Fallen. But as usual, I am just one nerd desperate for a good MMO.
That isn't Pantheon, of course.
And my opinion means nothing without your baseless cope for Pantheon down in the comments below.
All right.
And hey, if you are a backer for Pantheon, unlucky!
Lapnorg, you can't just slander my game like this, man. Ashes of Creation is a scam because I said so. Take that, Baldy.
And to that I say,
Oh,
listen,
God.
kid, I'm sick of your garbage game constantly making Ashes of Creation look bad, but clearly, instead of giving feedback to Visionary Realms for their obvious lack of talent, you'd rather remain ignorant because you're high on copium.
And also, they spent a bunch of fucking money on the game, and they don't want to act like the fact that they spent all that money is fucking they wasted their time. I don't know what Josh really said. There's a Narc video. We watch all of his videos. Make sure to give it a like, give him a sub if you haven't already. He's great. He does a lot of videos for Ashes of Creation. So I actually want to see what Josh actually said about Ashes of Creation, and I'll judge it for myself. And after that, we're going to start an axe. So we're going to be ready in just a few minutes, and we'll get into it and start popping off. Here we go. Let's watch this.
How will Ashes of Creation affect World of Warcraft's legacy? Visa is trying so hard to make me talk about MMORPGs. He's like, come on, Josh, give me a clip. Just say something about
right
Ashes
there.
of Creation so I can put Ashes of Creation in the clip title. Say something about World of Warcraft so I can put World of Warcraft in the clip title, because if I can put both of those in the clip title, then more people will click on the clip.
That's right.
That's a good question, Visa. We'll have to circle around. We'll have to come back to it. How will it affect World of Warcraft's legacy? Well, Ashes of Creation, if it comes out, when it comes out, possibly, maybe in the future, might be quite good. And then
I think that it's fair to be skeptical if it'll come out or not. There's been a lot of games that have not come out. And it's very easy to say that, oh, yeah, this is what's going to happen for sure. And, you know, I think that probably the team that's working there has every intention for it to come out. But you always have unforeseen circumstances. So we'll just wait and see.
It is the problem that what I'm seeing that Ashes of Creation is doing right now is they're already suffering from feature creep. Now, people that backed the alpha years and years and years ago were promised something, and now they are already showing off the game's taming abilities, you know, where you can tame beasts to your will and stuff. It very much feels like, imagine that someone made a really good board game, but before they released the core board game, they started talking to you about all the features that were going to be in the expansions. And you kind of have to say to them, hey, could you maybe release a core game before you start giving us all the expansions? Could you give us like a...
So what Josh is kind of saying is that the talking about the Ashes of Creation animal husbandry is so... it's so far removed from the actual game experience that he feels like it's kind of just noise. It's like, okay, this is great, but whenever I log in the morning, what do I do? I think that's fine.
Solid actual experience before you enhance it with everything else. I think that Ashes of Creation sounds like a fine concept, and I think they have been very much swept up in the idea that if they don't release with enough features to put every MMO game to shame, then they're going to fail. If they... World of Warcraft didn't release.
I don't think that's true. I don't think that it's true that they would fail if they didn't release with the features. I think a great example of that is mini games like Valheim, for example, is a very, very simple game, but it plays well and it's fun. You don't need to have a million features. You just need to have it be a good game.
As it is now. It didn't even release as Wrath of the Lich King. Most MMORPGs release with a base core game and then add the expansions as they grow.
That is true. I think the problem, though, is that whenever a game gets released as a base game, it's judged against every other MMO that has a foundation of like 3 expansions. So that's one of the ways that Lost Ark was able to get into the MMO market very easily, is because Lost Ark already had a lot of that framework done and a lot of that foundation built in Korea. But whenever a new game like New World, for example, comes out and it just has the bare bones, everybody looks at it and they compare it to like Final Fantasy or to WoW, and they're like, bro, this is not as good. So I think that's probably why the expectation is there for it to release with a lot of systems.
It didn't release as it is now. Elder Scrolls Online didn't release as it is now. Neither did Guild Wars 2. And I worry that, and again, this is an audience problem. A lot of MMORPG players, when they see a brand new MMORPG come out, they think, hey, this best release with all of the features that all the other games that I know that they have and that I love. No.
And I think that he's right that no, it doesn't have to release with that. But I think we have to be honest, too, that it will be compared with that. Because the moment that you come on the market, and I'll draw a parallel here, is like with Starforge, for example, right? It's our PC company and everything. And, the moment that we come onto the market, we automatically have to compete with Omen PCs. We automatically have to compete with MSI, with iBuyPower, with NZXT. We automatically have to on day one. It doesn't matter of, oh, we're a new company, these things happen. It doesn't make a difference because people still the consumer has the option to buy our product or somebody else's product, and we have to immediately create that value add. And so if a game doesn't have those value adds on day one, the game is dead on arrival. That's the problem. Now, I'm not saying that it has to release with every single feature, but it does have to have a large host of these features that differentiate it and make the gameplay in the game feel compelling and fulfilling. Because, yeah, the moment that you go onto the market, you're competing with people that have been there for 10 years. Whether you want to or not, whether you think that's fair or not.
A game, when it releases now, will not release in a finished state, and then it will slowly add to it over time.
That's true.
This is a balancing act, because some people hate the fact that games don't release finished. And in certain genres and in certain game styles, that makes total sense. If a single-player game releases unfinished, yeah, that kind of sucks. If an MMORPG releases in a playable state and just gets better over time, that's kind of how MMORPGs have always done it.
I do think that's true to an extent, but I think it depends on what the unfinished state really is. And I think, again, you can draw a parallel to New World, where whenever New World was released, it was in such an unfinished state, and the endgame and the gameplay in general was so rudimentary and repetitive that people lost interest in it, and it's taken New World a lot of time to regain those players back. Like, if you go and you look at, I'll pull it up right now, if you go and you look at the peak and the valley of New World here, you're seeing the game is still hitting 40,000 peaks. It's becoming a lot more popular. And if you look right here, it's actually going up. This is a tremendous, massive improvement. It's doing better now than it has in ever since February, right? February of last year, sorry, of this year, I guess, 8 months ago. So it's gaining a lot of ground. However, think about how much time it's taken for that ground to be gained and how much negative sentiment New World has generated in those 8 months. And I feel like New World is a really good case study of what happens whenever a game releases unfinished and the narrative of the game gets away from the developers and the game becomes bad because it is bad. I mean, Josh made a lot of videos about New World being garbage. I did too, because it was garbage. And that's what happens. Now, I think that you can easily make an argument, and, you know, I'm sure Josh would be right if he did make this argument, is that releasing unfinished does not mean releasing within vulnerability bugs. Totally fucking true. However, I think that if you take every bug out of New World on release, it was still a horrible game. It was still an absolutely horrible game. Like, no duping bugs, no furniture bugs, no invincibility bugs, nothing. It still would have been horrible. So I think it's super important for a game to release in a state that it can compete with the other games that are on the market. And the unfortunate reality of that is that it increases the barrier to entry for MMOs by a tremendous amount. So any MMO that wants to have that mainstream AAA splash is going to have to work so much harder just to get their foot in the door.
Release in a solid playable state, find their foundation, and then release...
Which, again, to be fair, New World did not release in a solid playable state.
Expansions which enhance this foundation. If you add an absolute load of extra bits into your game before you have a foundation, these extra bits aren't actually enhancing a core gameplay loop because you don't know what your core gameplay loop is.
Yeah.
You've just got hundreds of extra bells and whistles that are not strong enough to stand on their own merits, but also not strong enough to enhance whatever the core game is because the core game hasn't been found yet. So it's almost like ordering a meal where there's no main meal, but everything is a side dish. I very much worry that everything is going to be a side dish with a lot of new MMOs that release because they are adding everything and the kitchen sink into them without fully understanding that you need to have a core concept first before you enhance it with stuff. It's MMO tapas.
Okay. We'll watch this probably tomorrow. Yeah, I think that's fair. I think what Josh is really saying here, and this is the video for anybody who wants to watch it, you know, we've watched many of Josh's videos, and so he's even been on Allcraft before, etc. So I think he's right. I think really what he's saying in this video more than anything is that he wants to see more of the Ashes of Creation day to day. You know, less of the features, less of the pie in the sky, grand adventure, you know, ideals. Like, what do you do at level 1? How do you progress through level 15? When do you get your mount? How do you get your mount? How do you level up? Let's go through some quests. Let's see how the game plays on a very fundamental level. And to be honest, I think that's totally fucking fair. And it could just be a matter of focus, because I don't think that it's necessarily a bad thing what Ashes of Creation is focusing on, but I do think the nuts and the bolts and the important, you know, nuts and the bolts, the meat and potatoes, you know, the core of the game is probably more important than a lot of the little features. So yeah, hopefully in the next few months, you know, I'm sure Steven and them, they'll probably see these videos and, you know, maybe show a little bit more of like what the core gameplay is going to be. I think that's totally fucking fine. Yeah, he got the games he was thinking of mixed up. I'm not sure if he did or not, but I think that you can make this argument for Ashes of Creation too, just to a lesser extent. So does that sound fair? The argument remains the same. Yeah, even if he was talking about Pantheon, I think that a lot of these concerns can be applied to Ashes of Creation. He admitted he got them mixed up. Yeah, but I do think that they can both be they can both be applied to it. That's all I'm really trying to get at. Do you think companies spend too much time on graphics? No, I think graphics are extremely important. Graphics are massively important. Huge.